Hello, I'm Brian Trio, and welcome to an episode of Constructing Your Own Twilight Imperium 4 Homebrew, or more accurately, Embers of the Imperium Homebrew. In case you're not familiar, Twilight Imperium 4 is a board game set in space. It's basically a big old grand space opera, and Edge Studio has made a role-playing game based on that, but it's been really delayed on coming out. So got together with some friends and we're doing a playthrough of our own kind of homebrew version. And so I've just been making a few videos too on how we've been doing the different alien races for the player characters, or, obviously the non-player characters as well. For today, I thought we could just show you how to kind of reverse engineer the existing characters. So in October, they did put out a free module called Ashes of Power. And this came with 4 pre-made characters. And then they added some downloadable content to add to that module, which added another 2. So out of the 24 factions, not all of which I consider playable, but 6 of them are already covered, have already been made. However, they were in the pre-generated characters are already at a higher level than you would be using for starter characters. So I just kind of wanted to do a brief look at how you can engineer these 6 factions for character creation. And I've already covered some other ones, like the ones we were using, like the Arborek, the Letnev, the Sar. I did one on the Yin. So, and I'll keep doing these, but for this one, I'm just going to cover these 6 and kind of show you how to reverse engineer. So let's share screen. Let's bring up this first one here. All right, so all right, so this is actually from the downloadable content. Let's start with the more basic one. So here we've got Undersecretary Celix of the Xxcha, a turtle alien. And if you look at him, he's got a lot more 3s than you're normally going to see on a board. And so what you want to do is get this down so that it averages about 2. So you have to imagine that a starting character, an average character, is going to have 2s across the board with 100 XP, right? And of course, there's exceptions to that. So I'm going to show you how to engineer this into what this guy's starting position probably was, because he's obviously gone up. He's already done his character creation and spent all his starting XP, but he would have started most likely with 100. So we're going to, what did he spend here? He's got a 1, which means chances are he started with a 1, because you can't sell points, right? So we have to figure out where his 3 probably was. And so, so he probably had a 3 to balance that out. I would say on presence. So this just takes maybe, and obviously your opinion may differ, but the Xxcha are famous diplomats, politicians, and that sort of thing. So I feel like presence would be a good 3 starter for them. And so then if we're starting at a 1 and a 3, that means that he's starting with 90 XP. And the reason for that is you're moving the 2 to the 3, which costs 30. So that would bring you down from 100 to 70. And then you're adding 20, because going 1 to 2 is 20. So basically, you're going from 100 to 90 starting XP with that. And then these 3 other stats have moved up 1 each. So that would cost 30, 60, 90. So exactly 90 was spent on raising these other 3 stats. So you can see the starting stats would have likely been 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3 with 90 XP. So that's, if you're starting an Xxcha at ground level, that's probably what I would do. Now, things like soak, wound threshold, and strain threshold can be a little bit tougher, because you have to take into account their gear, and these pre-gen characters didn't really go into what type of armor they were wearing. And so you have to try to figure out, so soak is normally your brawn plus whatever armor you're wearing. So this might assume he's wearing an armor of a soak of 2, which is very likely for an experienced player. And we can take a look at this human character also has an armor of 2, armor of 1, but for a lighter dressed character. So it's pretty reasonable to assume that they've just assigned armor for soak. So no innate racial ability for soak there. Wound threshold, then again, you have to decide, is this probably a tougher character and strain? I know there could be talents or something they've taken to boost these. So you don't really know. So you kind of have to just think, okay, if it's a tough character, maybe starting at like 12 or 13 wounds, and then low willpower, maybe 11 or so. You kind of have to figure that one out, unfortunately. So I just kind of base on how tough do I think they are physically and mentally, and then kind of use the blank templates from like the Genesys core rulebook to try to estimate where they should start, because these may have been boosted through other ways. All right, then we got all the proficiencies. Now, because this guy's already spent all 90 of his XP to boost these abilities, we may not start with any XP unless you think you don't have, or with any proficiencies, but if you don't think you have strong enough racial abilities for him, then you might want to give a proficiency or two. Like the humans don't have any racial abilities, but they have other like extra XP and extra proficiencies at the start. So then you just got to go down here, take out the gear, and they're going to start with, we did 500 aura. I think, 500 is pretty standard, but it probably depends on the economy of how you're building your economy. We're kind of using the Star Wars Edge of the Empire for our economy. A lot of these items they're not going to be starting with. Our guys, we all started with comm beads, but this ambassador's raiment, annals of the custodians, like that would all be gear that's not going to exist. Talents and abilities. So this is where you have to figure out what is a talent and what is an innate racial ability. You kind of want to have your different factions and races having their own abilities, because it gives them the feel of being unique and different than the other characters. So in this case, I don't know offhand which of these are talents. I know that if you look at, I think somebody here has durable. It might be, well, surgeon. So that's a good example here. So our Hylar character, doctoral candidate Teroy, has an ability called surgeon here. Now that's a talent that they've taken. So that's not an innate character ability, but eidetic memory might be. I'm not sure, but so you have to kind of do is look at what talents and abilities that the pregen characters gave to them in the module, and then figure out which ones are probably talents, and then whatever there wasn't a talent is probably an innate racial ability. And you kind of determine, is that balanced with the other characters, and if it isn't, you might want to add a couple of free proficiencies on top of it as well. Let's take a look at savvy negotiator. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's take a look at these ones here. Sorry, these ones are a little smaller for some reason. So we have here a Titan of Ol character, which is really interesting because I didn't think they'd be able to be playable. But of course, a Titan of Ol player character is going to have to be much, much smaller, person size. But it would make sense that they would have that because they need Titans that are small enough to like go into the council building and all that sort of thing. So our Kaliri's agent Titan here is, probably large, 3 meters tall. So it's very tall, but still, small for a Titan. And you can kind of do the same thing to straighten out the stats. I would assume in this case that they started with a Brawn 3. So if they did that, so if we have a 3-1 here, we'd be starting again with 90 points, and then we'd be buying another 60. So that would have left them 30 points to spend on other things. So they could, could have spent on proficiencies or whatever. Or, and I'm just throwing this out there because I feel like this might be, the Ol has a lot of built-in equipment, like equipment that's not really purchasable. Now you could play it in your game that it is purchasable and give them the more XP, but I feel like they may have been cut in XP because they have built-in like these those. Okay, I guess you can't see my fingers on the screen. These little floaty orb things, the modular senso familiars. So it's possible that in the character creation for Embers of the Imperium that they've lost XP in exchange for these built-in gear that is part of their body, right? So that's pretty possible. Now, durable is a talent, I'm pretty sure, but Titanic would be a racial feature. So anyways, it's not a perfect science. Oh, you will notice that these have really high wound threshold, really high strain, a really low strain, which I think makes sense. Somebody with really high brawn and, you know, low cunning, so, and willpower. But yeah, it's kind of a test, like the playthrough that we're doing. If you want to check the channel and maybe see some of our playthroughs, it's a lot of us figuring things out, because we not only have to figure out the rules for Genesys, which we're making a lot of mistakes in, but also, you know, we got to check things with Edge of the Empire, the Star Wars part, so we can get the sci-fi gear and all that sort of thing. Plus, we got to try to balance that with the module, where we know what the Edge of Embers of the Empire is going to look like. Plus, the world building that goes beyond. Well, plus we need to know the lore of Twilight Imperium 4, plus adding all the elements that aren't in or aren't described in the game. So, yeah, it's a bit of work. But hopefully I'm pioneering it a little bit for somebody out there. But anyways, if you want to use one of these 6 factions, so we've got the Shikrai, or the Argent Flight guys. They don't have to be Argent Flight actually to be Shikrai, but then we've got a Hacan and a Hylar, human, and Xxcha. So I'm not going to bother making individual videos for these, because I think once you kind of get the hang of how characters are constructed, it's really just feeling out what you think is appropriate for the character. Now, this one does have an ability, I should point out. This extremely tough, I feel like this is a racial feature. So it's like once per session, they can spend a story point to double soak. That's pretty good. So yeah, it's very turtly. All right. Well, if you want more videos like this, don't be shy to like and subscribe. And we obviously need feedback and help in what we're doing. But hopefully, if any of you guys are trying to set up your own Twilight Imperium RPG, hopefully we have a little bit to offer in terms of world and character building and stuff like that. All right. Well, have a wonderful evening.